Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, faith in America. Also, the sacrifice for the Voting Rights Act. And the Supreme Court brings inconceivable chaos to Alabama elections.
Inconceivable. You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
In this case, it does. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and the man himself, Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR.
Never quite sure where that's going to go. I'm never quite sure, but I always appreciate it.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
I am never quite sure either.
I just sit here holding my breath.
Well, sometimes I probably should. Right?
You're right.
This has been a shocking week in Alabama politics and truly around the nation because, as I'm sure our viewers already know, the United States Supreme Court vacated the previous ruling in Allen versus Milligan, which has allowed the state of Alabama to this point to go back to 2023 maps that were deemed just a few years ago to be illegal because they were racially gerrymandering and they violated the 14th Amendment clause. And in the Calais decision, Louisiana versus Calais, Justice Alito wrote that the Louisiana versus Calais decision had no effect on Allen versus Milligan. Josh, were they lying to us then, or are they lying to us now?
Same court.
Yeah, it's the exact same people in the exact same court doing weird things. I mean, listen, there's no law anymore about it. It's whether it's who's going to stop you from doing these things. Okay, and that's the only thing people seem to care about anymore, and that's where we are with this. I mean, we have essentially the Supreme Court who agreed with the lower federal court that the maps that were drawn, the Livingston maps, these were the maps that are. So Alabama had a set of maps that they drew in 21, right. And put in place. Those were deemed to be illegal racial gerrymanders. The Supreme Court agreed with that. They both ordered the state of Alabama to go back and redraw these maps. So Alabama went into special session, you'll recall, in 2023, and everybody was mad about it. And they had to draw these maps and create a second minority opportunity district. Okay. And they went in and said, you know what, the hell with you guys in the Supreme Court. We're not doing that. And so they drew one that was even worse than the one that they had sent up there before. And the courts come back and said, no, we're not accepting that, of course. And they ran it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yeah, get the hell out of here. We're not even dealing with y'all anymore. Yeah. And so the federal court appointed a special master to draw those maps. And the special master drew those maps. Everybody took a look at those maps and said, hey, those maps are pretty good. They don't rely on race as the primary factor in these things. Alabama, the plaintiff in this case, agreed with that decision, and they all agreed not to sue or not to go back in and try to redraw the maps before the 2030 census. So then the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court after the Calais decision, after they had said in that decision that it's not messing with Allen. You know, the liberals on the court are arguing that this upsets Allen. It doesn't. Allen is still good law. Yeah, well, then they vacated it. Then they vacated that good law and sent it back down to the court. See, they could have sent it back down. They could have remanded it back down to the lower federal court and had them just review it in light of Calais to make sure there were no problems. But they didn't do that. They vacated it with the express intent of allowing Alabama to use maps that they themselves have deemed to be illegal racial gerrymanders, because they know what's now about to happen is they're all about to say, hey, we can't do anything because it's too close to an election, even though they've just changed it within a week of the primary. So that's where we are. There are no rules. There's only Republicans cheating their asses off.
Well, and the thing is, Susan, and this is what truly bothers me, is I know what the Roberts Court has been trying to do since Holder, Shelby County versus Holder. They've been weakening the Voting Rights Act. And John Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts at the time, said the country had changed since the enactment of the Voting Rights Act in '65. However, I said at the time, what country is John Roberts living in? Because he's certainly not living in the South. And look, you can try to make this all about race all you want to, and it is. The reason it is because they've said you can partisan gerrymander, but you can't. You gotta be careful if you racially gerrymander. But in the South, especially, and most of the country, the Democratic Party is made up of blacks, African Americans mostly. And so when you partisan gerrymandering, you're also disenfranchising, like they have done in Alabama, blacks. We have one congressional district. It is drawn like the strangest drawing a child would ever do. One black opportunity district. Now we've got two, and they're trying to do away with that.
Yeah, they are. I mean, this is this is all a mess. This is absolutely. Let's not forget, we're not that many years out from having to have pre-clearance of our maps before we could ever institute them. This has not gone away. If you think for 1 minute that there is not racism in the South, you're out of your ever-loving mind, because there is, and evidenced by redoing these maps, going back to these maps, and then taking a victory lap and a glory stand over being able to, at least get out one of the black districts.
And Josh,
it doesn't get more racist than that.
We only got about a minute and a half, but the federal courts have put the brakes on this for the moment, and they have given the state time to respond, and the plaintiffs a chance to respond. But right now, it's just all chaos.
Yeah, it is all chaos. They've thrown the whole thing into chaos, and they didn't care. They didn't care about that. They're trying to get 2 extra seats. They're trying to get 2 extra seats because they know that Republicans are about to get absolutely steamrolled in these midterm elections. And the whole point of this practice, the whole point of all of this that we're doing right now, is so they can cheat. You can say we can make the racial argument or the partisan gerrymander argument about all of it, but the only argument you've only got 2. You've only got 2. And the best that you can say, the most moral argument you can say is, we're only trying to cheat, but on a partisan basis. We're not trying to just disenfranchise people. We're only trying to cheat. Why don't you let us do it? And that is the most ridiculous thing, to look at these folks in this state. And we all know the history, at least most of us do, that were afforded a decent education. We know the history. We know the history here of this state. We know how hard black people in this state have fought. We know what they went through. We know about the marbles in the jars and the poll taxes and the fights and the bombings and everything else. And we know what we're doing to them, and we don't give a damn.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Every day, families like ours are doing everything they can just to get by. Gas prices, grocery bills, it's getting harder. That's why Austin is fighting to pause the gas tax, make groceries more affordable, and protect our local hospital. Because investing in our public schools means investing in our future and bringing good-paying jobs back home. And he'll never stop fighting to protect your right to vote. Austin was raised here, educated here, and will work for us in Montgomery.
I'm Austin, and I'll never stop fighting for you.
Your property is your home, your investment, and your legacy. Across the country, scammers are filing fraudulent deeds, often without the owner knowing until it's too late. React is a free alert system. If a document is filed using your name or tied to your property, you'll be notified within 24 hours.
Property fraud is a crime, and the faster we know it, the faster we can act.
Sign up today. Protect your property, protect your legacy.
In our communities, you don't get handed anything. You earn it. From humble beginnings working in the restaurant industry to owning his own small business, Kelvin Lawrence has always served the people. From mayor to state representative, delivering millions for roads and infrastructure, showing up when storms hit, supporting our schools and teachers, and fighting to freeze the gas tax so working families like you can keep more of what you earn. Kelvin Lawrence. He's done the work, because here, hard work still matters.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, this is a hot topic. It is a topic that is dividing the state, not just racially, but ideologically, where, I've heard from moderate Republicans and even some in the legislature that they really did not want to do this, all right? But the most devastating thing is I got a email from a man that I am friendly with. He is a black man. He said, Bill, I know you don't have any personal experience in being black, and that you can't understand how deeply this affects me. And I almost had no way of answering that, because he had lived through Jim Crow. He had lived through the poll tax and all that. And Susan, as Josh just brought up, black men and women sacrificed their lives, their liberty, their jobs to fight to get the right to vote. And I'm sorry, Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, the country has not changed all that much. One of the biggest things is the rise of the far extreme right, and I'm not going to call them Republicans. The extreme right has given permission for this type of forgetting the sacrifice that men and women made for equality in this country.
Well, Alabama, and while prevalent in other states, Alabama feels this pain more deeply than other states. And we've got Bloody Sunday. We've got the church bombings. We've got the dogs. Martin Luther King. We, as a result of Bloody Sunday, ended up with the Voting Rights Act because of that. Because finally, the world could see what was going on here. That was only in 1965. That wasn't that long ago that this happened. There's not been that much that has changed. And it's obvious and becoming more apparent the further the far right goes with this, in that they absolutely are racist. They absolutely want to cut blacks out of being able to have their own representation.
Right.
It's obvious.
I got another email from one of our viewers who said, why do we always accuse Republicans of racism? It is not, we're accusing Republicans per se, in my mind, Josh, and you'll disagree with me, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. There are Republicans who don't like what's going on. Mm-hmm. But they're afraid of the Republicans that do like what's going on. So unlike the people in the 60s who stood up and were beaten and put their lives on the line, these people will not even risk a hangnail to protect the freedoms of their fellow citizen. I mean, maybe a bad hangnail, they just can't tolerate it.
Well, yeah, I'm honestly grown a little tired of the excuse of, we really don't want to do this, but we're going to do it anyway. Take a stand, coward. Seriously. It's just, it's so disheartening to listen to that over and over and over again. And they know what they're doing, and we know what they're doing. And look, it's to be a white person in this time and to with a functioning brain, it's really frustrating to look around and see so many snowflake white people and what they have been led to believe. I mean, it seems the easiest thing in the world to do is to convince a white person that somehow they've been wronged by equality. That somehow giving people an equal opportunity in things is somehow making life so much harder for you. And it goes against everything that we're about in this country, supposedly. I get those letters too from people that tell me, and I don't know what it's like, but I know what fairness is, and I know how fairness is supposed to work in voting and in life, and this is not it.
No, this is not it. And the thing is that it troubles me so much is that, and when I say this, okay, in Indiana, what was it, 6 Republicans stood against Donald Trump's call to redistrict Indiana. Mm-hmm. And they lost because Trump had somebody run against them. These people are more afraid of losing their job than they are of taking a stand. Now, obviously, they were not in Indiana. But I'm telling you, people, in a democratic republic, in a constitutional republic, there are things and principles worth losing for, worth paying the cost for. And it just inflames my soul to see the indignity that is being cast once again on our fellow Americans.
Yes, absolutely. As if the civil rights movement never happened. As if these people didn't lose their lives, have their houses burned, have all their cattle killed, children bombed in a church, as if this never happened.
Yeah, and I want to say too, there's this argument that's out there about how, well, nobody is being denied their right to vote. I mean, what are y'all talking about? Nobody's denying anybody their right to vote. All right, look, this is what's happening, okay? Just so you understand, so somebody has told you, okay? What's happening is, in this state, we have packed black voters into districts, and we have also cracked what they call black neighborhoods and communities in order to separate them, to diminish their voting power together, and to exaggerate the voting power of white voters, of more Republican conservative voters. That's what we've done. That's why right now we're talking about a 6-1 district or 6-1 districts in this state in maps, because they don't know what to do math-wise with all of those black people that they've crammed into that Terry Sewell district over there in District 7. Because if you do that in Jefferson County and you cut that little finger off that runs up there, well, then all of a sudden Gary Palmer and some of those guys have got some issues. All right. Yeah. And if you do it down in District 2 down here, well, then Barry Moore and whoever's going to run for CD2 is going to have some issues, just like we see, because that district, CD2, is not a majority black voting district. It is not. It is 47% black, as a matter of fact. So there are thousands more white people voted in that district than black people did, and they chose Shamari Figures. So,
unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Your property is your home, your investment, and your legacy. Across the country, scammers are filing fraudulent deeds, often without the owner knowing until it's too late. React is a free alert system. If a document is filed using your name or tied to your property, you'll be notified within 24 hours.
Property fraud is a crime, and the faster we know it, the faster we can act.
Sign up today. Protect your property, protect your legacy.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. You know, Susan, there's something going on in the lieutenant governor's race, but it's also happening nationally and here in Alabama. And I think it's where we're separating out into not only the fringe groups, but by religion. And in the United States, it was never to be about religion as a purity test for public office. I know a lot of people complain about the separation of church and state, but again, it is throughout history that's the case. You know, George Washington wrote to the Hebrew congregation, I think in Newport, and said, look, we're not going to tolerate this intolerance or bigotry or any of that. But recently, that has been so on the rise that Wes Allen, who's the Alabama Secretary of State, accused his rival, John Wall, of doing something basically nefarious for going to an interfaith dinner in Anniston Islamic Center with other non-Muslims. He accused him of that. Well, then he was on a talk show and he was asked about that incident, and he said, no, I don't apologize for it at all. I'm a devout Christian. I wouldn't go to a mosque. And they said, well, would you go to a synagogue? And he said, no, I wouldn't go. So here we are, and Wes Allen may be a fine human being, and he obviously he's a true believer and all that, but that is not the founding of this country. And John Wall, in his response, said, well, Jesus didn't just stay in the synagogue. He went out, and Christians are supposed to go out into the world, and to spread the gospel, but they're not. We've had President Reagan, President Eisenhower, President Obama, President George W. Bush, George Bush. All these people have gone to interfaith gatherings, mosques, synagogues, and all that. And I just find it very deeply troubling that we have a candidate that says these types of things. Now, I think the world of his campaign manager, and I don't know Wes Allen well enough, but to me it's just a disturbing trend, especially given the history of the state.
Yes, it's a very disturbing trend in that I hate to break it to Wes Allen, but Jesus was a Jew. Okay, he was of Jewish persuasion. That's what makes a big deal. But he also went, among other believers of different things, and tried to gather people together instead of separating apart. I mean, when I was growing up, it was socially ill-advised to speak about politics or to speak about religion separately. Now we speak about them together out loud in public, which is all it's doing is causing divide, just like Wes Allen's trying to do, saying, well, I'm a better Christian than you because I don't go near these other faiths like they're a disease. And they're not. They are just people that Methodists and Baptists don't believe the same. Episcopalians don't believe the same. May have the core together, but they are individual religions. So you're telling me, well, you're a Baptist, you wouldn't go anywhere near a Methodist church?
Yeah.
Don't give me that. That's just simply fear and hate mongering. That is all that is.
Josh, none of this is new, but we thought in a civil society that lived by the rule of law that this was sort of something from a bygone era.
Yeah, you're right. None of it's new, but all of it's stupid. And it really is. Listen, there has been nothing that has caused more problems or killed more people than religion. Okay, that's just right. All there is to it. And it's and how we've allowed it to enter into our politics in this country, especially given the way we were founded and what we were founded to, what we were running from, and the problems that we clearly saw and that our founders clearly saw in religion seeping into our government. I just don't understand this. I don't know how many times people need to be fooled by these crazy people who stand up and talk about how wonderful and faithful and devout they are in whatever religion that they're in. I would prefer that you worship a Festivus pole on Sunday and keep that nonsense the hell away from whatever job I'm paying you to do, and go out and balance a budget, care for the poor, figure out how to pave the roads, make the trains get there on time, and do your job. I mean, I'm from the Bill Belichick school of politics here, which is do your damn job. And I don't understand why we need this religion why we need somebody standing on the steps of a church waving a Bible and a shotgun, which, I mean, is its own juxtaposition that I've just never understood. But I mean, why we need these in our campaign ads, why that makes anybody feel better about who it is that they're voting for. To me, if you in any way put church or religion and I don't care what church, I don't care what religion. If you put that in your ad, I am not voting for you, because I just assume you're a con man who's trying to scam the hell out of everybody by preying on their beliefs to make them feel like, to overlook some other flaws that you have, because you clearly can't stand up and articulate to people what it is you're going to do in the job you're asking me to elect you for. All right? Well, that's the problem.
And I don't think he thought it through this far, but the guy, the man that's running to be lieutenant governor on the Democratic side is Jewish.
Yeah.
Again.
And a great human being, and a person who doesn't bring religion into what he's doing, but instead goes out and tries his best to care for everybody and listen to people and put forth a platform that actually helps working Alabamians and to do things right in this state.
Susan,
how about that?
Seconds.
It's just a mess. I agree with you. I mean, it's gotten to where it's performance art, and it also backs up them going after transgenders and going after, gays and, anything else they want to do, bathroom laws or whatever that they want to do, because they raise that. I'm a Christian, so I got to protect you from all of this stuff so that I can do this over here and not, as Josh says, actually do their black job.
Yeah, because as we know, Jesus is famous for saying, hate your neighbor.
Yeah, I thought there were just two commandments: love God and love your neighbor, and it didn't specify that your neighbor had to be of your own religion. We're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.